10/14/1943, 26,000 feet over eastern France. Contrails knitting white ladders across a sky so brittle it looks like one touch could shatter it. The P-47D Thunderbolt shivers as the Pratt & Whitney R-2800 Double Wasp hammers a deep iron beat through Lieutenant Tom Carver's boots. He leans toward the canopy, breath fogging the glass. Eyes past the bronze spinner to the ragged procession of B-17 flying fortresses marching east Schweinfurt bound. Bomb bay doors tight. Turrets roaming the blue like a city's watchful eyes. Blue leader. Fuel check. Captain Hub Zemke's voice, clipped through the throat mic, wraps static around resolve. Keep your drop tanks until I call it. We will not be cut short today. Tom taps the gauge with a gloved knuckle. External tanks still fat. The Thunderbolt wears them like tin gourds under the wings, each one the difference between escorting to the turn point or abandoning the bombers 100 miles too soon. Everyone knows the math. The jug gulps gas like a giant at a barrel, but they are here. With reach stretched by aluminum drums and stubborn will. Call signs tick in 2 green, 3 green, blue, 2 copies, Tom adds. Blue, 4 green. He raises the nose a hair until the buffeting becomes a steady hum, skating the outside of his element. Wingtip a measured breath from his leaders. Far ahead, black seeds flower, tiny at first, then resolving into the clean, predatory shapes of BF-109s and FW-190s stepping down from the sun. Up sun, out of glare. Rolled into gravity, the Luftwaffe has chosen its stage perfectly. Tom can almost see the curl at a Staffelkapitän's lip in some ready-room memory dive Fliegende Badewanne. The flying bathtub too big to turn, too slow to climb. Bandits high, 11 o'clock, multiple sections. Zemke calls, all flights, do not chase, climb 200 feet, turn in. We are the screen, remember your boom and zoom, if you saddle, you die. The low box of B-17 slides close enough for details to bite navigators' blister flashing. Chin turret twitching, a waist gun's wink. Then the first act begins. Blue flight, jettison tanks, clamps snick, silver drums tumble, flash like fish, and drop away. The jug lightens like throwing off a pack and discovering you can breathe deeper. 2 thumb taps of trim and the bandits spread their claws. The first pass comes like thrown knives. FW-190As streak through the contrails with cannon blinking wasp bright, raking the top of the lead box before peeling. BF-109Gs pounce from the sun's edge, long-nosed and greedy, gondola guns hanging like daggers. A fortress coughs smoke from a wing root. The formation tightens. Tail guns stitching tracer nets into the air. Tally-ho Zemke corkscrews up and over. A bull turning to meet wolves. Tom slides with him, feeling the jug's mass as a thing to be commanded, not requested. Lesson learned since spring, you do not twirl with a German fighter, you fall on him. Trade altitude for speed. Bring a storm. 2 crossing high, left to right, his wingman barks, watch your 6. Tom trusts mirror sound, 6th sense, born of hours over Europe, and sees the opportunity. A pair of 190s cut toward an open lane where a lagging box will be a heartbeat late. He rolls inverted, nose falling through the horizon, and lets weight take him. The dive starts as a slide, becomes a plunge. Air turns to iron around the canopy. The prop disc blurs to a silver saw. The tape licks forward, 300, 320, 360 plus. Here, the jug reveals its secret, where a spit trembles and a Messerschmitt frets. The P-47 grows confident, huge wing, thick spar, round engine like a shield, gravity is a friend. The nearest 190 floats up in the sight like a fish rising. Tom makes 2 small corrections a toe of left rudder, a taste of right aileron. The N3 ring swells around the German's canopy. Range ticks down. He holds. Waits for the angle to fall into place like a door on a good latch. He squeezes. 8 Browning M250s speak as one, a ragged, roaring saw. The jug shudders from recoil, brass pouring from the wings. White streaks climb the Focke-Wulf spine from tail to spinner. The canopy flashes. Fire unrolls. The 190 slashes right, trailing a hot banner, and vanishes below the bombers in smoke. Splash 1. His wingman breathes. Boy awed for half a heartbeat. No time. 109s are among the forts, and the forts bite back in arcs of incandescent defiance. Blue 4. Break Tom yanks left and down. A 109 scythes through where his cockpit was. Cannon puffs stitching emptiness. One thunk hits under the right wing. The jug lurches, corrects itself, keeps true. Oil pressure good, cylinder head temp good. The air-cooled radial blacksmith's anvil shrugs. Claw back altitude. Never linger low after a strike. Angle to fall again. This is the new grammar the 8th is writing. Come down. Hit hard. Climb back where angles answer to you. Each pass a sentence, the paragraphs written in smoke. A 109 swivels below. Too slow to escape the returning weight of Tom's Thunderbolt. Short. Controlled burst bits peel from the port wing. The German tumbles. Tom doesn't watch the end. Lift, trim, check 6. Breath fogs the glass. The oxygen tastes faintly sweet and metallic. A B-17 staggers. Outer engine feathered. Crew fighting to stay in the box. Tom edges closer. A shepherd dog nudging a wounded ewe, and plants himself between the cripple and the next set of bandits dipping to gut shoot. He thinks of nothing noble. Only the next line, boom. Saw, climb, somewhere. Men still laugh at the bathtub. Up here, the punchline is 850s. A wedge of FW-190s rides straight into the lead boxes. Minengeschoss set to make aluminum burst like fruit. One fortress opens from the chin back clean. Terrible. Tom rams the jug's nose down. Driving at the wedge not to kill all of it, but to put speed and threat where nerve lives. Germans blink. A brake too early. A lift to avoid a collision. The wedge splits. The front rank of forts slips through a hole that shouldn't exist. Another sledge thud along Tom's left wing. The aileron vibrates like a plucked string. He banks against the wobble, feet alive on the bars, and glances kink near the hinge. Fabric scuffed. Still his. He grins. Feral. You'll have to do better, he mutters. Blue 4, Status Zemka asks. Airworthy and ugly, Tom says, still biting. Then keep biting. Bombers beginning the run. Bomb bay doors yawn long white smiles in gray bellies, and the forts commit. All drift vanishes. Wings hold measured distances as if by prayer. The problem becomes simple and murderous hold level long enough to let steel step into the world. And don't die doing it. Luftwaffe swarms 109s from the sun, 190s from the deck, a pair of BF-110s lobbing rockets. The page fills with too many sentences. Tom picks one, a 109 easing into a blind cone beneath a fortress whose chin turret is dark. He dives 600 feet, lays a 4-count burst from tailplane to cockpit, punches out the windscreen. The German tumbles. Tom is already through. Light on the stick, hunting the next mistake. Flak tightens, black flowers opening at their height. Shrapnel chews paint along Tom's wing. The day tastes like iron. Bombs gone. A lead voice calls, thin, steady, turning home. 2 words tighten his throat. Tom banks with the wheel, holding his spoke. German fighters press the turn, savage and near. Exhaust smell threading even this high. Pressure slides into his low 6, about to break when his wingman barks. I have him. And a dark shape flashes under Tom's belly. Rising, shooting, the weight dissolves. Tom remembers to breathe. A cripple drops out, trailing twin ropes of smoke. Rudder frayed. A hatch flips. Silk blossoms. Tom wants to count, but doesn't. Counting breaks hands. He looks for threats and finds work. At the flak ring's rim, the air unclenches a fraction. Some of them will see England. Maybe him. Blue flight. Heading 270, Zemke says. We climb in 2s. Boom, saw, climb, no hero work. Tom settles the jug, the saw still hot in his hands, and points the nose toward the long, thin promise at the edge of the world. 10/14/1943, high over eastern France. The clock sliding toward midday as the bomber stream claws for the border air. The radio stays clipped, no wasted breath. Lieutenant Tom Carver's P-47D rides the turbulent wake of the low box, nose steady. The N3 sight, a calm circle laid over a world trying to tear itself apart. A gap opens in the undercast rail lines. A ribbon of river. Brick towns like scars, then the cloud closes and only sky. Metal, and will remain. Blue flight. Pivot east 5 degrees, Captain Hub Zemka says. Low box sagging, keep them tight. Tom taps rudder. The wounded B-17 inboard of him yaws, corrects, and fights altitude like a man guarding the last candle in a storm. A waist gun flashes. For half a second he glimpses a helmeted silhouette. Elbows anchored, the rhythmic sway of someone who has learned to stand in moving air. They arrive like thrown knives, FW-190s from 2 o'clock high. BF-109s stepping down sunward. Gravity an accomplice. Bandits, too high Bree. A voice snaps off in static. Tracers unkink from the lead boxes. Contrails smear as fighters roll to dive, far ahead. Flak blooms in black flowers. Feelable even here as a tightening of skin beneath leather. Do not climb to meet them, Zemka warns. Steady as a metronome. Angle in. 1 pass, 1 kill. Climb back. Blue 4. You're with me. Tom tilts, lets the nose fall, counts 1 and 2, unspools the big fighter into the German's path. A blunt-nosed FW-190. A white spiral pulsing on the spinner rolls to pour cannon into a fortress cockpit and misjudges by a breath. Tom rides the pipper up the spine, holds longer than comfort, then squeezes. 8 Brownings answer. The jug jolts. Armor-piercing an incendiary bite along the canopy rail into the engine ring. Smoke sleeves out. The 1-90 overcorrects and shears away through a contrail as if tearing cloth. Tom never watches endings. Rule shoot, extend, climb. Good hit. You're low 6, clear. He knifes the Thunderbolt uphill. Speed trading back to height. The double Wasp's note even. Oil pressure steady, cylinder heads green. He imagines the earlier hit under his wing like a dull acorn flattened on oak shrugged off by iron pistons and armor plate. Across the formation. A B-17 coughs. No. 3 feathers. The prop a black arrow frozen in glare. Tom angles toward the gap where wolves test fences. A BF-109 G6 with gondola guns lines the straggler. Tom rolls inverted, drops through the German's plane of motion, belts biting shoulders, and waits out the urge to fire early. The angle opens now. A raw mechanical chorus hammers the starboard wing root. Debris peels. The 109 slides nose low into cloud. Tom counts 3 for the gunner who lives another minute, for the silence in the waist, for breath, then noses up and out. Flak increasing ahead, comes cool across the net. Schweinfurt's ring shows coal-black bursts at their exact height. Time fuses set by crews who know American altitudes like telephone numbers. The forts hold level, relentless bomb doors still latched. Raggedness ghosts their ranks a nicked tailplane, a screaming radio wire, smoke where smoke should not be. Stagger left, keep the curtain, Zemke orders. This is where they earn their pay and we earn ours. A wedge of F-190's noses in dead ahead. Menengeschoss primed to burst aluminum like fruit. They ride head-on fire with obscene nerve. A fortress opens from chin to radio room clean. Terrible. Tom shoves the jug's nose down to drive a moving wall through the wedge. 2 190s blink and break. A third holds too long, and Tom lays a tight 2-second burst across the right wing outer panel, peels like a tin lid. The fighter tumbles through contrails. The rest pass amid a storm of tracer and welder-bright flashes, and emerge smaller than they entered. The bombers march on. Something slams Tom's left wing sledge on wet wood. The aileron vibrates. He banks against the wobble, feet alive on the bars, catches a glimpse of a kink near the hinge. Fabric scuffed still his, airworthy and ugly. He reports, still biting, keep biting. Bomb run starting. Bomb bay doors yawn long white smiles in gray bellies and the forts commit. Drift dies. Wingtip spacing locks like a prayer made visible. The problem reduces to its cruel purity hold level long enough to let steel step out. Do not die while doing it. Luftwaffe swarms 109s from sun, 190s from deck, BF-110s lobbing rockets to draw escorts down. The sky becomes a page with too many sentences. Tom picks one a 109, easing into a blind cone beneath a fortress with a dead chin turret. He drops 600 feet, walks a 4-count from tailplane to cockpit, punches out the windscreen, and is already past. Hands light, hunting the next mistake. Flak thickens black flowers at their altitude. Shrapnel rats chew paint from his wing. He tastes iron. Bombs gone. The lead ship transmits, thin but steady, turning home. Turning home, 2 words that make throats ache. Tom banks with the wheel, holds his spoke. German fighters press the turn. Savage near, exhaust smell reaching even here. Pressure slides into Tom's low 6. He's about to brake when his wingman barks. I have him, and a dark shape flashes under Tom's belly. Rising, shooting the weight, dissolves. He remembers to breathe. Below, a B-17 drops out, trailing twin ropes of smoke. Rudder ragged, a hatch flips, a figure tumbles, silk blossoms. Tom wants to count chutes and refuses. Counting breaks hands. He looks for threats and finds more work, which is the same thing said plain. At the ring's far lip, the air unclenches by a hair. Some of them will see England today. Maybe him. Heading 270, Zemka says. The old litany returning like grace before a meal. We climb in twos. Boom, saw, climb. No hero work. Tom settles the jug and points its big round face toward the thin promise on the rim of the world. The saw still hot in his hands. 10/14, 1943, early afternoon. Westbound now. The bomber stream bending for home like a tired animal finding its stall. Contrails behind them are smudged and broken, each gap a name that will be chalked later in a quiet room. Lieutenant Tom Carver levels the P-47D and checks the engine as if feeling for a pulse manifold steady. Oil pressure good. Cylinder heads in the green despite the scuffed left aileron. The R-2800's deep rumble is a living thing under his boots. Blue flight. We climb in twos, Captain Hub Zemka repeats, the words nailing the formation to the sky. Top cover first. Rotate. Do not chase. Let them come to you. Southward, a wall of cloud builds, the kind that eats good intentions and returns wreckage. England lies somewhere beyond that weather. Tom's wingman edges closer, prop disc biting sunlight into flashing coins. Between them limps a wounded B-17 they've taken under their arm, holding altitude like a man holding a mouthful of blood he refuses to spit. The Luftwaffe makes one last bite. A flight of Bf-109s slides down from the sun toward the rear boxes where tail gunners are tired and nerves are thin as string. Tom's hands steady of their own accord. The jug noses down into a clean, measured pass. Speed piles on. Air roars against the canopy frames. The lead German commits early on a lame duck, blind to the shadow dropping above him. Tom gives the Huns 3 seconds to make their mistake whole, then squeezes. 850s tear a bright zipper along the Messerschmitt's spine. The G6 jerks, belches smoke, and slides into a cloud bank like a coin into water. Tom is already climbing back through his wake, trading speed for height, rejoining the spoke of the wheel. The sky loosens. Germans, too, are close to home and start counting fuel instead of courage. A pair of FW-190s prowl at distance, then bank away. Headset chatter thins to housekeeping spacing. Fuel. Headings laid over that peculiar quiet that follows a thing survived but not finished. Fuel is the stone in Tom's belly. Drop tanks are long gone. He has only what the jug carries in its belly and wings. He does the math he knows in his bones. Wind. Distance. A damaged aileron's drag. Zemka's voice threads under the numbers. We'll make it. Hands light. The clouds ahead grow from hills to mountains. White cliffs with gray caverns. Weather ahead. Angels 2-2. Recommend penetration in elements. The lead bomber calls. Somewhere in England, a controller is turning a prayer into a plan. Blue flight. We'll shepherd the cripples beneath the deck, Zemka decides. Element 2, stay high for cover. Carver, with me under. Tom clicks twice. He eases down, keeping the limping fortress in the corner of his eye, never the center. Never so close, he becomes its problem. The cloud wall swallows them. For several breaths he flies only instruments and faith altimeter needle creeping. Artificial horizon's tiny airplane held steady, hands gentle, exact. They punch through, first the shadowed bellies of 3 fortresses, then a hatch of winter sun, then the channel, flat and gray as hammered pewter. Their wounded fort is still there, a little lower, a little slower, still stubbornly alive. Tom lets a full breath go. Home plate, blue leader, Zemka transmits, Angels 1-8, feet wet, inbound with cripples, fuel marginal. The reply is tinny and kind, blue leader. Vectors 305 to field, surface wind west-southwest 15, pancake by elements, foam standing by. Foam. The word flips Tom's stomach. He glances left. The aileron skin is puckered, hinge lines scuffed. Fire trucks on concrete bloom in his mind like bad flowers. He doesn't argue with the picture, he flies the airplane. Blue 4, status Zemka asks, Father Gentle. Holding, she'll wander left if I look away. I won't look away. Mind the flare, take the crosswind like gentlemen. Feet dry, cliffs and hedgerows lift from haze like a memory. The field spreads a gray tongue into green. Other birds circle. Drop. Commit. A smear of smoke at the far end shows someone else's bad minute already being handled by men in asbestos coats. The day insists on being everything at once. Land by elements, Zemka says. Carver, tuck with me and make it neat. Downwind. The big prop flattens to a disc. Flaps droop like eyelids. Gear handle down. 3 greens. Mixture rich. Prop full fine. A breath he didn't know he took. A prayer he didn't know he remembered. The crosswind shoves in the flare. Tom answers with rudder and patience, no stamping. Mains kiss, tail settles. The aileron chatters once like a nervous laugh. They roll, they are rolling. Home. He taxis past sugar-frosted Thunderbolts and Mustangs. Ground crewmen jog in with chocks and fire bottles. A corporal in a greasy cap runs his hand along the left wing, whistles at the crease. Mixture to idle cutoff. The double wasp coughs, sighs, stops. Silence drops like a curtain. The ladder clanks. Cold air rushes in. Hands greasy, calloused. Human pull him down into the noisy little world of men who taste oil for breakfast. How many? Lieutenant someone asks, already knowing the number is always wrong. Tom removes the helmet, hair iron flat with sweat. Looks at the horizon instead of the man. Enough. Debrief smells of boiled coffee, wet wool, pencil shavings. A map sprawls across a table. The intelligence officer's patience is a uniform. His pencil has teeth marks. Show me where they came in fast from 2 o'clock. Any rocket's twin-engine Zemka gives timings, headings, altitudes. Tom gives the texture how the first wedge broke when a head-on threat made them blink. How Minengesho's opened a fortress like fruit. How the jug took a sledge to the aileron and flew true if you trimmed her like you loved her. The intel man nods, building bridges from words. Mess ritual follows tin cups, jam on paper-tasting bread, a radio hissing a dance tune from a different war. Outside, ground crews lay hands on broken birds, tapping, patching, swearing with affection. The ledger will be counted after dark, it always is. Tom steps into the wind and lets it wick the sweat from his neck. He studies the jug new crease in the left wing. Soot kiss on the cowl and feels that complicated love men reserve for tools that do not fail them. He traces the stencils with a glove. P47D10RE, 850 M2, fuel 305 gal internal, and the unstenciled truth, a will to fall like a thrown anvil, to climb like a promise kept. A truck backfires. Every head ducks as if the sky fired again. Laughter follows brittle, brief. The sun lowers. Another mission rises in its place. Perhaps somewhere a German still laughs about the bathtub. Up here. The punchline remains 850s and the work that follows them home. 02-20-1944, 24,000 feet over central Germany. Sun a white nail in hard blue. Contrails don't drift, they engrave. Lieutenant Tom Carver thumbs the magneto switch habit. Reassurance and listens to the Pratt & Whitney R2800's even thunder. The jug tolls like a church bell, steady and certain, over a frost-paled city whose rail yards glitter like sugared webs. on the net. The code name everyone now speaks with a straight face rolls out from fighter control argument is in effect. Big week has begun. The winter taught them stingy flying and clean hands after Black Thursday. The 8th bled and learned pace the dives, trim in the fall, roll out with the horizon as a straight edge, refuse the carousel. Ground crews quilted jugs with proud patches. Zemke drilled Wolfpack layers sections hunting as one flexible animal, offering dives in waves instead of solo heroics burned on fuel and luck. Paper tanks 108s and then 150s gave the Thunder more leg. And above. The sleek newcomers, P-51s, were already tasting Berlin's spires. The jug pilots didn't resent it. Bloodlines and jobs were clear today. The P-47s sand down the Luftwaffe's edge wherever a hand rises. Blue flight, set 25 manifold, 2400 RPM, Zemke says. Voice Carpenter level steady. Hold Angels 2-4, watch the sun. Expect interception before target. 1 pass, no saddles, keep the saw clean. Controller bandits forming near Castle. Angels 2-7, Vector 270, Zemke. We'll meet them. Tom's hand settles on the throttle. He tastes oxygen's cold coin, feels lambskin bite his cheeks, and glances at the sluggish Saints B-17s and B-24s plodding east. The promise circles his ribs, we will be the wall until you turn home. Inkflecks smear their contrails, swell into FW-190As and BF-109Gs stepping down the sunline, drop tanks. Zemke orders, silver drums tumble, flash, and are history. The jug lightens, 2 thumb clicks of trim-align mass with gravity a loaded spring aimed downhill. Blue 4, 2 o'clock high, 3 Mies stepping. His wingman calls, Tom angles not to chase, but to be a problem in their future. A 109 tips into the down sun run that makes a bomber's nose a doorway. Tom rolls 40 degrees, lets the nose ease a hand's breadth below the horizon, and gives the weight its head. The dive is a nave of air, the double wasp a pipe organ. The sight ring holds. He leads the pilot's panic, not the airplane's skin. The latch of angle clicks, he squeezes. 850s render a verdict. The G6's canopy powders, the starboard root bursts dark. The fighter tumbles. Tom is already unloading, already climbing. The big Pratt trading rush back into height. Pressure builds everywhere at once. Sturm armored 190's blunt charge a liberator box. Turrets answer with welder-bright flicker. One German rides too long and vanishes inside the formation in a glitter of fragments killed by proximity and bad math. Tom takes the next 190 on a slash, rips an outer panel, watches him peel wounded and lets him go. Today isn't for duels, it's for sanding steel until the hand that holds it shakes. Flak wakes statistical. Personal when your luck line crosses. A black flower opens by Tom's left tip. The jug tugs like a dog on a leash. Gauges oil steady. Heads nudge, then settle. The aileron hums, then behaves. High above. A P-51 knifes through a step of 190s with the contempt of speed. Below. P-38 scissor a cripple clear. The net tightens. Kinship, not envy. Straggler, low left. A young voice cuts in. Zemke Carver, take it. 1 pass, then back on the wheel. Tom slides sunside of a smoking fort, a shepherd in the corner of an eye, and high quarters a BF-110 closing to finish it. A short, ugly burst powders the cockpit line. The heavy fighter slumps away, embarrassed. A waist gunner throws a thumb the sky can't possibly see. Tom feels it anyway and climbs back to his slice of blue. The grind takes over Vector. Pass, climb, water tube tastes of rubber, mask of wool. He speaks rarely and shoots only when geometry becomes ethics. The waves shorten as German fuel runs through hourglasses. Some break early now, some press until the last gun queue clicks empty. 190 rides head on and detonates into a hole in the day. Tom looks away. A man can only study so much nothing. Bombs gone, the lead calls, matter of fact. The gate opens, the heavies bank with a continent's dignity, the escorts tighten their net. Outbound. The Luftwaffe nips once, twice, then shrugs. Fields quilt up beneath. Fuel needle points west like a solemn friend. Argument units. 285. Zemke says, voice loosening by a thread. The channel takes the afternoon sun like a brass bowl. England rises from haze. Short final smells like wet grass through engine heat. The jug settles. Tires bark. Tail eases. Runway hums a low, victorious note. In debrief, the map grows arrows and circles under a pencil gnawed to a stub. Sturm armor sighted. Rockets from 110s. Gondolas on G6s. The intel man recites. Tom answers in bearings and verbs. Someone chalks big week. Day one, as if naming days tames them. Outside. A greasy-capped chief palms a new flax scab and murmurs, "She'll brag about this one." Tom glances at the jug's square shoulders, round face, soot-ringed mouths, and thinks of an old laugh told in ready rooms across from here. The flying bathtub fell like an anvil and climbed like a promise. The joke is running out of breath. 0306, 1944, 25,000 feet over central Germany. Cold so clean it bites the soft places behind the eyes. The bomber stream points like an arrow at the word everyone has been whispering for weeks. Berlin and the morning sun lays a pale stripe along the Thunderbolt's spine. Lieutenant Tom Carver thumbs the safety catch on the gun switch with the same practiced care he uses to check the magnetos. The Pratt & Whitney R2800 thrums under his boots. A patient metronome. Argument continues. The controller had said it brief. Big Week's blood is still fresh on the concrete. "Blue flight. We'll run Wolfpack," Captain Hub Zemke says on the squadron net, voice steady as a carpenter's level. 2 sections stacked and offset, dive in layers, nobody saddles, nobody chases into the weeds. Tom glances right. His wingman sits 2 ship lengths off, canopy glass winking, beyond. A ladder of contrails shows the P-51s striding ahead toward the deep escort. The jug does not begrudge the Mustang the honor. The jug knows its work hold the middle, break jaws, come home with dents that would have killed a liquid-cooled friend. Drop tanks. Zemk orders. Metal drums kick free, tumble, flash once in the sun like fish turning, and fall into their own history. The jug lifts under Tom as if shrugging off a pack. He trims 2 clicks nose down, a whisper of right rudder, and feels the big fighter align with gravity. A loaded spring aimed downhill. The first Germans show as smudges that become airplanes that become men. FJ-190As in clean finger 4s, and BF-109Gs with the swollen chins of DB-605 superchargers. Stepping down from the sun, somewhere in a ready room this morning. Someone may have smiled at the old joke, the flying bathtub, too big to turn. Up here, the joke is thin as paper. "Bandits 1 o'clock high, 30 plus. A calm voice at fighter control announces, turning fear into math, vector 280, altitude 26,000. "Blue flight copies," Zemka replies. "Carver, you and 2 cut high left. We'll split the wedge." Tom eases the nose to the sun side. Do not climb to meet them angled to take away their choice. The nearest staffel tips into the down sun run that makes a bomber's nose a doorway. Tom rolls the jug to a 40-degree bank and lets the nose fall a hand's width below the horizon line. The dive catches him first to slide, then a pull air roaring hard along canopy seams. The airspeed needle licking forward 320, 360, 400. The R2800's note deepens into a saw. A 109 grows steady in the sight ring, the pilot's canopy glinting like a bead of water. Tom adds a toe of rudder to settle the pipper just ahead of the man's choices, not the machine's center line. Wait, do not feed the need. Let the angle open like a good latch. Squeeze. 8 M2s rend the sky in one ragged choir. The jug shudders and steadies. Tracer rungs climb the 109's spine. The starboard wing root bursts into a dirty rose. The Messerschmitt flicks to a half roll and falls away, trailing jagged cloth and fuel mist. Tom is already unloading, already climbing back, already thinking in the grammar that keeps men alive. Boom. Saw. Climb. Good bite, Blue 4, Zemke says. Keep cutting. The Luftwaffe presses. A group of FW-190s heavy, armored. Likely Sturmjäger forms the blunt wedge of a head-on assault against a high fortress box. Tom's mouth dries. He has learned to respect a man who flies straight into 50 caliber fire. Respect does not mean allowance. Blue flight. Top cover turn in now. Zemka calls, and they dive not to duel, but to put a moving saw-toothed wall in front of the wedge. Two 190s blink first and break. A third holds a fraction too long enough for Tom to lay a tight. 2-second burst across the right wing. The outer panel snaps back like a peeled tin lid. The German pitches hard and tumbles through contrails. The rest of the wedge splits, passes amid the fortresses in a storm of tracer and arc welder light, and emerges smaller than it entered. The bombers fly on, impossibly steady. A city's worth of courage drawn into tight, level lines. Flak thickening ahead. A lead pilot warns. Black bursts mark a ring. The air tastes like iron filings. The P-47 takes the shrapnel on its cheeks and keeps chewing. Oil pressure steady. Cylinder head temps nudge and settle. The radial engine's indifference to small insults is a friend you do not take for granted. A call from high right tally. A gaggle dropping from 3 o'clock high. The sky momentarily becomes a crowded page. P-51s pounce through the top step. Sowing chaos. A pair of P-38s scissor low, herding a 190 off a limping B-24. The net tightens. Tom picks one knot, a BF-109 G6 with underwing gondolas easing into the blind cone beneath a fortress, and drops the jug through space like a thrown safe. The German fills the sight at an oblique. Tom feathers the trigger. 6 short dashes stitching from tailplane to canopy. Glass powders. The 109 staggers low. The waist gunner in the fort flashes a hand he can't possibly think is visible. And yet Tom feels seen. They are near the city now, geometry of roofs. Rail yards like stitched braids. The flat. Late winter light of Berlin's approaches. The bomb bay doors open. White smiles in gray bellies. Every fighter on both sides hears the same silent bell now. Luftwaffe formations surge. American escorts turn knives to meet them. Hold the wheel, Zemke says. Nobody gets dragged. Re-attack in pairs. Tom and his wingman run the pattern like men running a fire bucket line. A 190 flashes under the nose too close. Too fast. Tom lets him go and takes the wingman instead. The easier sin in a crowded church. A 109 tries a shallow climbing turn to bait a saddle. Tom unloads and slides high, refusing the invitation. The jug is not a dancer. The jug is a fall in a lift with murder in between. Below, bombs walk the yards. A sheet of flame peels from a shed roof. A plume boils, black and oily. The fortresses take their minute of steel weather and then, with the implacable dignity of freight trains, close doors and bank west. The Luftwaffe snaps hard at the turning edges. Tom hears the zip of a cannon shell pass so near the canopy it seems to comb his hair. He brakes, not wild, but exact, and the German's firing line dissolves into empty blue. His wingman's voice, young, tight, still here barks, clear, and a 190 scythes past below trailing smoke. The Mustang that did the scything already gone. For a breath, the sky is clean. Sky. Blue flight, reform, Zemke calls. 285 to home. Watch for stragglers. We escort them, not the other way around. Fuel. Tom checks it the way a man checks his shadow. Enough if he does not decide to be brave at the wrong time. The R-2800 hums the same stubborn hymn. The battered B-17 they adopted early in the day limps at the edge of the box. Number 3 engine feathered, rudder ragged. Tom slides into the shepherd's slot, a little high and outside, where he can fall on any wolf that mistakes hope for weakness. They reach the flak ring's far side. The air unclenches. The German fighters, too, feel the arithmetic of fuel and drift away by pairs and singles. Small, dark birds banking into separate towns. Tom suddenly tastes water through the rubber hose and realizes he forgot to swallow for a very long time. Feet wet over the North Sea. The sun hangs low, white and thin. England is a gray promise beyond a darker band. Tom eases power, checks temps, leans the mixture to something kind, and listens to the double wasp sing its low, workman's song, on final. The crosswind tries to shove him. He holds the line with feet and patience. The jug settles, tires rumble, tail eases, alive. After shutdown. The sudden silence is ungenerous. It shows him the blood singing in his ears and the tiny tremors in his fingers. The crew chief in the greasy cap runs both palms over new scars on the wing like a man palming the flanks of a horse after a hard run. She'll tell stories about Berlin. "Lieutenant," he says, and grins as if the plane had a mouth. In debrief, the intelligence officer's pencil crawls across the big wall map arrows, circles, an X where a Staffel died, a dotted line where 190s turned home. Any signs of Sturmgruppen armor, rockets, twin engines, or Störer? Tom answers in verbs and bearing numbers. When someone asks about the jug versus the laugh in German ready rooms, he shrugs a shoulder and says, 850s turned the sky into work they did not want to do. He steps outside. The airfield smells of wet grass and hot oil and tea. Somewhere a dance record scratches through static. Somewhere a chaplain walks, counting names he does not yet know he will say aloud. Tom looks at the jug's squared shoulders, the big round face of the radial, the saw-toothed mouths of the gun ports, and feels the same calm he felt diving on the 109's blind corner. The bathtub fell, the saw sang, the men came home. 6/06/1944, 04:37 over the channel off Normandy. The dawn, a pale bruise along the eastern rim, and the sea below busy with wakes like white stitches on dark cloth. The Thunderbolt wears new paint, black and white invasion bands hastily brushed around wings and fuselage. The edges ragged, the purpose not friend from foe at a glance. Lieutenant Tom Carver feels the R-2800's even thrum in his boots and smells wet canvas and oil. The cockpit glass beads salt and sweat in equal measure, ahead and below. The first assault waves crawl toward the beaches under a roof of low cloud and a ceiling of prayer. In his ears, the VHF net murmurs with stacked calm control to blue flight. Angels 5, Vector 180, sweep and keep the lanes clean. Copy. Captain Hub Zemke answers, voice kept low as if the sea might hear. Blue flight, set manifold 24, RPM 25, eyes out, alt at 5,000, do not drop into the boats. They cross a line of barrage balloons at mast height, and Tom has the dizzy sensation of flying through a city that grew overnight on water LSTs, LCIs, destroyers throwing up curtains of flak at shadows, barrage balloon winch crews staring upward with salt raw eyes. The air tastes of cordite and sea, inland. The hedgerow country rises like a green wall. Bandits too high, 3 o'clock, fast. His wingman calls. Tom cranes. 4 FW-190s, cautious and quick, skate the edge of the overcast, testing the seam between sea and land. Zemke answers with the new liturgy, modified for a day when falling too far means machine guns on your own. Do not chase below 2. We keep the corridor. Tom angles up, not toward the Germans, but toward where they will have to be if they commit. On any other day, he would fall from 20,000. Today, he works in the low war, where speed is made not only of gravity, but of nerve. The 190s dip, tempted by the barges fat with men and steel. Tom slides the jug into their future and puts the N3 ring a hand's width ahead of the leader's canopy. He touches the trigger. The 850s bark short. Disciplined answers. The lead Focke-Wulf shivers and lifts, instinct betraying training, and the small change of angle is enough to spoil the run. The quartet breaks, snaps brief, probing shots at nothing, and runs inland under the cloud like wolves denied meat. Good, hold the lanes, Zemke says. Blue 2 and 4, top sweep 1 and 3, with me lower. They find the day's second task the way men find a wheel in a fire by its heat. A destroyer on the gun line calls batteries inland. Barn roof. Repeat barn roof, and the controller translates for the fast boys overhead flak position at grid Queen Red, 2 miles inland. Flashes under a red tile barn. Zemke does not hesitate. Blue leader copies. We'll lean on it. Tom's jug drops into ground attack trim as if shrugging a coat arming panel safeties flicked. Bombs live. The big fighter suddenly feels like a hammer with wings. He rides the hedgerow line at 300 knots. The bocage a blur of green walls and sunken lanes. The smell of churned earth pushing up into the cockpit with the slipstream. The barn shows itself as a too-neat roof among huddled trees. Muzzle flashes wink from the eaves. Men who have practiced on chalkboards for months now perform their lesson under fire. First pair, bombs, Zemka says, as calm as a surgeon. Second pair, guns and go around. Tom takes the second card in the deck guns and watches the first two jugs walk two 500-pounders across the barn as neat as stitches. The roof lifts in a sigh of dust and slate. Tom rides his run along the north wall and rakes the flank with a 3-second burst. 50s plowing through tile and timber. Figures scatter small, swift, suddenly human. The flak cough dies. The beachhead breathes a fraction easier. They pull back to Angels 5 before anyone can be drawn into that most seductive of errors, the second pass too many. Zemka's rule breathes in Tom's head one run clean. No loitering over men with sights and ropes of tracer. The jug is a friend in this work-thick skin. Self-sealing tanks. An engine that drinks insult for breakfast and asks for more. Still, the cemetery waits for those who think a truck's armor extends to the man inside the truck. The day unspools as a weave of high and low. At mid-morning, they sweep to push back a knot of BF-109s, sniping at troop gliders, limping home. Tom falls on a yellow-nosed G6 that shows too much wing in a climbing turn, and hears the brief. Ugly chuckle of his own guns as the Messerschmitt coughs and slides away. He does not watch him crash. He has seen enough endings to learn restraint is a kind of mercy to yourself. By afternoon, the sky belongs to the invaders, if only by weight of will. Thunderbolts, Mustangs, Typhoons, Lightnings, an alphabet of revetments rolled into the air, cross and recross at altitudes that 10 days ago would have belonged to nobody. Blue Flight trades tasks with a sister unit and gets handed a job Tom both loves and fears, armed recce. The blunt phrase for hunting anything that moves on roads and rail less than 50 miles behind the line. 0608, 1944. Late light over the Orne, the land smelling of rain and crushed leaves. Tom's section runs the sunken lanes like wolves ghosting hedges. A German staff car breaks from a farm track, white flag fluttering. They let it go rules and decency, and Tom feels the odd, necessary split of war kill machines. Spare men when you can see their faces. 3 minutes later, a half-track and 2 trucks roll into a crossroad that thinks it is hidden. Tom's bombs go first. Dropped a breath early because a hedgerow reared up like a wall. One 500-pounder opens the road like a wound. The second scabs a tree line with splinters. He pulls up, rolls, and comes back with guns. Walking 50 fire along the truck's hoods. Figures run, fall, crawl. The half-track's gun chatters and a bead of tracer crawls along Tom's right wing in a line of sparks. He flinches, steadies, climbs out. The jug comes away marked but unbent. The R-2800 grinds on. Oil pressure holds. Cylinder head temps, tick and settle. Second pass, his wingman asks, voice thin with the wanting. Negative, Tom answers. Firm, we did our work, we're not statues. On the way home, the channel sits gentler than it has any right to be, as if the sea decided it could help in the only way it knows not, by saving men, but by failing to surprise them. The airfield smells of new canvas and old oil and tea boiled 3 times. Ground crewmen, new boys with soft hands, and old men with grease ground into their knuckles touch the invasion stripes and grin at the brush marks like fathers admiring a child's crooked haircut. The crew chief in the greasy cap thumps the jug's cowl and says, "She takes to the low work like a plow horse. Lieutenant, we'll hang rockets when the ordnance boys stop arguing." They do hang rockets. A week later, stubby 3-bank tubes for M8s that look like stovepipes screwed to a church. The first time, Tom looses a pair at a rail cut. The smoke wash rolls up over the canopy like a wave, and he laughs. A quick, startled, unbelieving laugh you only hear from men who expected less and got more. The rockets stitch the embankment, and a locomotive that has been told it is invincible discovers that iron can bleed. But the low war has teeth. 0622, 1944, near Saint-Lô. The hedgerows fold sound into corners so that flak coughs appear at the last second. Straight ahead, Tom takes a dirty punch on the right wing. The aileron stiffens. The jug wants to roll right all the way to the ground. He holds her with legs and breath and a fist on the trim tab wheel, counting 1, 2, 3 like a man creaking down a narrow stair with a piano. The field is a smear of green and mud and ambulance flags. He makes it when the ladder clanks. His knees surprise him by shaking. At debrief, the map of Normandy looks like a child's worksheet covered in pencil scrawl road cuts, blown bridges, no joy notes where Germans didn't show because they heard and hid. The controller has a new system he calls rover roving fighters, called in by ground units with forward air controllers in jeeps. Tom listens with the gratitude of a man who wants his work to meet the right problems fast. The low war will be made of these simple inventions: a radio in a jeep, a chalk mark on a roof, a strafing run called off because a white panel laid on a hedgerow means your own boys are down there, faces dirty and eyes up. That night, rain drills on the tin roof over the dispersal. Someone puts a needle down on a dance record and the music sounds like a memory of being clean. Tom walks the line and lets his hand drag along the jug's flank. Invasion paint under his glove, rough as dried mud. He thinks of the old laugh in German ready rooms, the bathtub, and tries the sound of it in his head now that the saw has been working low as well as high. It no longer fits in his mouth. Dawn will come pink and thin. The controller will say a road name in a voice that turns fear into grammar. Zemke will make a small joke that is also a prayer. The jug will start, cough, shake, settle, and somewhere under hedgerows and smoke and the tired sky, the work will go on: boom, saw, climb even when the climb is only to 2,000 feet, and the boom is a rocket and the saw is 850s tearing the day into safer pieces. 09/17/1944. 10:02 over the Netherlands, sky high and thin, the ground a patchwork of canals and brick towns. The Thunderbolt's new work is written in cloth parachutes bloom across the fields like white poppies. Then canopies of Horsa and Waco gliders drift in with the patience of cathedral bells. Operation Market Garden is a gamble spread across half a country. Lieutenant Tom Carver holds 8,000 feet and watches the columns of men below turn roads into moving ladders. In his headset, the controller's voice turns geography into verbs: Arnhem, Nijmegen Bridge, keep the corridor clean, do not overfly the silk. Blue flight copies. Captain Hub Zemke replies, the calm, never theatrical, always a tool. Top sweep first, then armed recce along the highway. If it moves east and carries across, it's yours. They find the first bite of the day at a crossroads studded with elms. A pair of Stoogie 3 assault guns nose out from a copse, low and mean, with a half-track idling behind like a dog on a chain. Tom eases the jug down the hedgerow line so low the smell of cut hay reaches up. The R-2800 growls like a baritone clearing his throat for a hymn. First pair, bombs, Zemke says. Second pair, guns. Tom is guns again. The lead P-47 pairs lay 2 500-pounders with the indifference born of practice. The road rears and folds, one Stoogie slews sideways, its skirt plates hanging like torn coattails. Tom runs the lane in, the N3 sight steady, and saws a 2-second burst across the half-track's grill. The radiator erupts in steam and men spill from the back, small and fast, leaving a trail of dropped kit like breadcrumbs. He does not go around again. One pass, clean hands. By evening, the corridor is a mouthful of broken teeth. The Germans adapt fast guns hidden in barns. Flak slewed up from city squares. Motorcycle messengers riding ditches. The jug adapts with them. Rockets hang now under Tom's wings like bundled brooms. And the first time he looses a ripple at a rail embankment near Nijmegen. The backwash smears the canopy in chalky smoke and the bridge chokes on flame. That'll do, he says into his mask to no one. Through October, the work pivots south. 10/07/1944, near Aachen. The air tastes of coal smoke and rain. 9th Air Force controllers, Rover Joes in jeeps with whip antennas, park on ridge lines and talk fighters onto targets with the intimacy of a friend pointing out a doorway in a dark room. Red barn with a slate roof, 2 guns in the hayloft. "You're clear after the lane with the split chestnut," a voice says, and Tom answers by making a barn remember what it is to be wood. The Luftwaffe shows when it can, thinly, with yellow-nosed 109s skittering through clouds to nip at Thunderbolts bent on low work. Tom takes one on the upswing from a strafing run never saddle. Always unload and drags a 3-round burst across the German's wing route. Cloth unzips. The 109 kicks into a crooked half-roll and disappears into weather that smells like dirty wool. Ground fire remains the greater danger. Twice. Flak pounds the jug like fists on a locked door, and the radial answers by running as if insult were fuel. In mess tents. Men who have flown both ways back from a bad hit, liquid-cooled. Air-cooled say it plain the big round face up front is a friend who carries you when you limp. 12/16/1944. The Ardennes. Dawn arrives late and badly, half sick with fog. It is the first morning of the German counteroffensive, though the word bulge has not yet been written on any chalkboard. Tom wakes to the hiss of rain on canvas and the thin sound of good shoes moving too quickly on a wet floor. The phone on the ops table rings without ceremony. Reports arrive like Stone's tanks at Losheim Gap, columns on the Orthe, bridges blown and rebuilt. The controller's voice is quiet and unhelpful. Weather below minimums. Hold for improvement. They hold, listening to a rain that seems to be falling on someone else's skin. For 6 days, the sky is a locked door. The Wehrmacht drives west under a roof that makes airplanes into rumors. Tom walks to dispersal and stands under the wing like a boy under a porch roof, while the ground crew in the greasy cap smokes and says nothing. News comes in ink and absence. Malmedy becomes a word men say without swallowing. St. Vith becomes a question mark on a map in a cold room. Every hour, the controller tries the latch on the weather, and the latch does not move. 23/1944, 09, 11. The door opens. The fog thins to a gray veil and then tears like paper. Sun pours into the Ardennes like someone has spilled light. Engines catch the field fills with the coughing chorus of radials waking, and men who have been waiting to be themselves again jog for ladders. All flights. Scramble, the controller says. Voice too level for joy. Armored columns on the roads to St. Vith and Houffalize, target rich. Tom's jug climbs into a world that has been hiding wolves. The roads below are braided with armor. Truck convoys, staff cars, fuel Bowser's war, moving as if the sky were a friend. It is not. Not today. The first pass is a thunderclap. Bombs walk a switchback above Stavelot, cutting a column into 4 twitching pieces. A Panzer IV warps to a stop half off the road. Turret cocked like a hat someone has tried to punch straight. Tom does not look long. He drops to treetop, lines up on a string of Opel Blitz trucks snaking between hedges, and lets the 850s talk in that stuttering iron language the Germans call Jabo music. Canvas rips. Engines burst into neat. Square fires. Men abandon vehicles, rolling into ditches like coins flicked from a table. Flak answers. 1,000 little Angers 20mm and quad 50s torn from half tracks and thrown skyward. The jug takes hits like a dock pile, takes knife scratches. A green streak lances along Tom's right wing and chisels paint away in sparks. He feels the aileron lighten, then return as if offended at being asked to fail. The engine's steady anvil song does not change. They work as a wheel, pairs rotating, one attacking while one climbs, one covering while one turns. A flight of P-38 scissor low over a railhead and leave it hiccuping smoke and steel. Typhoons, brutish and brave, scream in with rockets and make crossroads into geometry you could not drive. Radio nets knit it together with the cheerily bureaucratic poetry of Rover Control Blue 1. Your friendlies are at the church with no steeple. The road with the hayrick is clear to fire. Beware left field, our boys in foxholes. Near L'Église, Tom finds the day's hardest problem a king tiger hulking at a T-junction, its glasses plate sneering at anything that isn't fate. Bombs mean a second pass he will not allow himself. Rockets might do, But the angle is bad and the smoke ugly. He chooses the Jug's old truth and aims where armor is not tracks. Engines, eyes. The first pass rips the timber shielding the back deck into splinters. The second chews a run of 50 into the road just in front of the right track until the lane itself sprays into the tank's face. The driver stops, then angles too late. A shell from somewhere honest artillery brought by a man with a phone in a ditch finds the joint between turret and hull. The Tiger goes still and then burns with the reluctant dignity of a barn. By afternoon, the rumor has become reputation. Columns halt at the first cough of an engine above hedges. Staff cars dive into farmyards. Flak gunners shoot at shadows. Fuel bowsers become more valuable than tanks. And Tom learns to smell gasoline at 400 feet. The Jug saw sings until his ammo counters flick down to small. Embarrassed numbers. He calls bingo guns. Then bingo fuel. Climbs on a ragged stepladder of thermals and points the big nose west, behind him. The roads burn like threads pulled through a candle. On final, the field looks like a carpenter's yard after a hard month patches. Scaffolds. Men carrying pieces of airplanes as if they were furniture. Tom rolls to a stop. Canopy open. Exhaust heat shoving at his eyes. The chief in the greasy cap climbs the ladder and peers into the wing root bullet kiss. Then taps the cowl with 2 fingers. She likes cold weather, he says with the proprietary affection of a man praising a mule. Hates fog, loves killing trucks. In debrief, the map of the Ardennes is no longer a neat bulge. It is a ragged chew. Controllers log fighter bomber strikes like bookkeepers writing a hymn. 12 trucks, 4 armored cars, 2 tanks probable, 1 fuel column damaged, 1 bridge denied. It is arithmetic written in smoke, but the sum is real. Infantry officers arrive, mud to the knee, and ask for more at dawn. They speak of German tankers who now move at night like thieves because daylight has turned into a machine that shreds columns. Tom walks out into a wind that tastes of snow and coal. The Jug stands under a strip of late sun, its invasion stripes grayed by winter, its gun ports ringed with soot like the mouths of men who smoke too much. He puts his palm on the cowl and feels heat go into his hand. Remembers June's sea wind and February's thin cold. Remembers the laugh about bathtubs and how gravity has never laughed back. Tomorrow they will fly again. The weather will decide what kind of war it is, a high one, a low one, or both, and the Jug will oblige with a dive, a hammer blow, and the saw's old, brutal song. On to 1945. 08-12. A skin of frost on the wing and breath hanging inside the canopy like a ghost. The dispersal hut stinks of wet wool and tea. Outside. The flight line looks ordinary in that treacherous way winter mornings do, quiet. Tidy. Nothing moving except ground crews kicking at ice with the toes of their boots. Lieutenant Tom Carver tugs his glove tighter and listens to the R-2800 cough, clear its throat, and settle into a low iron hymn. The radio is half asleep. 2. Until a controller somewhere west of Brussels punches the day awake, strikes on multiple airfields repeat. Multiple. Bandits over Asch, Saint-Trond, Metz, Antwerp, many aircraft, low level, scramble all available. The ladder slaps away, chocks jerk free, prop to full fine, mixture rich, throttle forward until the Jug trembles in that way that says she is whole. Wheels lift at the far hedge and the field drops away, a page turning. Frosted hedgerows slide under the nose like stitches in a blanket. Control to all blue elements. Vectors 085, Angels 3. Raiders are low. IFF intermittent. Watch your triggers. There's a tone in the man's voice Tom has heard only a few times, the mix of urgency and disbelief that means the enemy is doing something reckless enough to make sense only once. They see it 5 minutes later, black smears of smoke rising from a fighter strip near Liège. The wreckage of parked aircraft burning in neat rows. And over the mess, a knot of FW-190s and BF-109s slashing past the hangars the way boys run the length of a market. Knocking hats. The Luftwaffe's last big gamble, Bodenplatte, has arrived as a New Year's visiting party, with torches. Blue flight, stay high. We pick them as they climb out. Blue leader says, voice granite, names are rare on the radio now. The winter has shaved everything down to essentials. The first German lifts from a strafing pass and doesn't see the net closing overhead. Tom lets the jug fall into the angle, not greedy 3-second burst. No saddle, and the 850s tear a row of holes along the 190's cockpit sill and dorsal spine. Canopy shards sparkle. The Focke-Wulf rolls belly up and plows into a field that had been asleep 1 minute ago. Tom is already unloading, climbing, searching for the next man committed to a bad exit. Low over a railway siding, 2 109s rake a row of tents and service trucks. White sheets blooming from the ground as if somebody's throwing tablecloths in panic. A pair of Mustangs from a neighboring group cut one off and herd him straight through Tom's sight picture by accident or design, it doesn't matter. Tom squeezes a short, mean burst at oblique and sees the German's radiator explode into steam like a kettle dropped on a stove. The 109 limps east, trailing a white ribbon. A P-51 tidies the ledger. The air is crowded with contradictions. Allied flak coughs at anything with wings. Controllers plead hold fire. Friendlies low. Friendlies everywhere. While columns of guns ignore the niceties that separate salvation from tragedy. Tom keeps the jug above 2,000 feet whenever he can. High enough to be judged by silhouette instead of superstition. Low enough to have a say. A 190 flashes past with rockets still slung late, sloppy. Tom slides behind him, refuses the easy long burst temptation costs ammo, and takes a half-second bite that opens the starboard flap like a tin lid. The German jinks, loses the line of his own courage, and scythes through a line of trees in a ragged glitter of branch and aluminum. Blue 2, check 6 blue leader's bark saves a life. A 109 has slunk in low under the confusion, cannon blinking pale. And the jug in his sights looks like a fat myth, begging to be killed. Tom dives shallow, no heroics, and cuts a crossing burst that doesn't hit the German so much as scare him into a wrong geometry. The 109 overshoots, yawing in the slipstream, and Blue 2 answers with a steady, vengeful burst that folds the belly radiator and sets the machine to smoldering. Thanks, Blue 2 says. And Tom hears the tremor a man gets the first time death forgets his name. By 9, the surprise has rotted. German pilots, victors on the first minute, begin to bleed for lack of fuel, maps, and luck. Tom watches a staffel trying to form up over a frozen canal like boys calling roll in a burning school. He drops through and ruins the count, picks the wingman instead of the leader, and then climbs away without looking to see how the wingless shape ends. He has learned not to read every sentence all the way through. Blue flight, reform. We'll cover the field at Saint-Trond. Blue leader orders. The strip is a smoke-stitched quilt. Crash trucks spraying white arcs. Medics running hunched as if the wind has hands. A Mustang bellies in long and straight. Prop bent. Pilot hauling canopy. Ground crewmen sprinting like men who haven't run in years. Tom circles high. The jug's prop, a gray coin. And feels, for the first time in weeks, that the Luftwaffe's laugh has become breathless. Bodenplatte will eat more of their own than of ours. That truth creeps in through the headset in fragments. Wrong landmarks, friendly flak. Pilots who will not be replaced. 01/23/1945. Snow traced like linen across the Hürtgen. The war grinds east, and the P-47 goes back to its winter trade roads. Rails, river crossings. By now, the men speak of bridges with the fond contempt of carpenters. Remagen is a rumor. The Rhine a word that makes boys' faces older. Tom flies armed recce over the Moselle and learns the smell of cordite over snow. That strange clean bite that makes a man remember paper in school and decide not to linger there. Down low, the jug becomes a farm tool again. A plow tearing furrows in roads through columns that regret sunlight. Rocket tubes hang in banks like stovepipes when Tom squeezes them at a switchback. The smoke rolls up over the canopy like surf, and then shreds to show a truck jackknifing into a neat. dangerous not of its own burning. He keeps faith with the single most important rule of the low war: never give artillery the second look. One pass, clean hands. If a friend on the ground begs for a re-attack, he answers with yes and geometry, not with loiter. So 2/14/1945. The sky is thin glass. A train with its heart in its mouth sprints along a tree-lined cut like a thief caught at a window. Tom and his wingman make the old two-pronged approach the squadron calls, shears one from the beam to make the engineer freeze, one from dead ahead to cut the headlamp out of the world. The first burst is caution. The second is the saw song. Long enough to walk 50s along the boiler's seam. Steam erupts, white and boiling. A ghost bigger than the engine. The train hisses to a stop, and men tumble out with hands up to the waist as if surrender can halt physics. Tom climbs and does not look back. He has learned that mercy sometimes looks like not watching. 03/07/1945. The word Remagen comes over the net like an answered prayer said too loud. Ludendorff Bridge intact. The controller says, voice disbelieving and devout at once. All elements interdiction East Bank. Deny roads, deny rails, deny ferries. The Rhine has been the map's thick line since they were boys. Now it is a thing they will walk across. Tom drops to treetop and discovers Germany has no corners left to hide in. Every road knits to a road leading east. Every field smells of diesel and cold iron. The jugs' 8 mouths chew until the ammo counters read like single digits in a child's workbook, and the engine's even rumble feels like a hand on his back. On the span itself, MPs wave like demented traffic cops in a pinwheel of smoke and exhaust. One looks up and throws an exultant V that belongs to every man alive today. The Luftwaffe still appears in shards, the odd 190, dragging itself into a fight to make a point that only one man will ever hear. The brave, foolhardy 109 riding head-on into a box of 50s as if noise can change arithmetic. Tom deals with them as with weather angle. Burst, climb, no chase. He feels, for the first time, that the P-47's bulk no longer invites jokes. It invites respect. A simple workman's nod given to a tool that has not failed when asked to do ugly jobs. On the field that evening, the ground crewman in the greasy cap rubs grimy hands and stares at the jug's gun ports. Ringed with soot like too much cigarettes on an honest mouth, he whistles at a new flak scar and says, "She never did pretty. Lieutenant, she does finished." In the mess, a chaplain says a name that is not Tom's, and the tea tastes like metal. In debrief, a map of the Rhine Valley blooms with circles and arrows like a schoolboy's daydream of geometry. The controller writes varsity pending on the board and underlines it twice. Airborne across the Rhine will need Thunderbolts low and teeth bared. Tom snaps his flight book shut. The jug waits under frost. Big-shouldered, unhandsome, faithful. Tomorrow the saw will sing again over bridges, over columns, over a river that history thought was a wall until men made it a hallway. 03/24/1945, 07:11 east of the Rhine near Wesel. Daylight laid down in clean silver sheets, and the river below wide as a thought you've been carrying your whole life. Operation Varsity is written across the sky in Silk Horsa and CG-4 gliders in tows by the hundred. Paratroopers stepping from Dakotas in files so long they look like stitches hemming a continent. Lieutenant Tom Carver holds 6,000 feet in a P-47D that no longer wears invasion stripes bright. Only scuffed paint chalked. Gun ports soot black. The Pratt & Whitney R-2800 hums a patient, workman's hymn in his headset. The day's grammar is simple and absolute varsity traffic. Maintain Angels 6, sweep the drop zones, suppress flak. Do not overfly silk unless cleared, unless blue flight copies. Captain Hub Zemke replies, making orders sound like promises. 2 sections high cover, 2 sections low work. Carver, you're on low with me. 1 pass, clean hands, mind the friendlies. They meet the morning's first problem at a crossroads north of the river barns, neat. Trees clipped, a church spire like a finger raised in warning. From the eaves of a red-tiled barn, a 20mm nest coughs tracer into a rope of paratroops drifting slow as breath. Tom's stomach turns to wire. Target red roof. Eaves flashing. He calls, already angling down. The P-47 grows heavier with purpose. The N-3 sight ring steadies over the barn's corner. Zemke's pair goes first, bombs tossed in two brisk, neat steps. The roof lifts in slate and smoke. Tom follows, rakes what's left with a 2-second burst that writes 50 caliber across splintered beams and a gun that had believed it would live all morning. The rope of tracer kinks, wavers, dies, silk blooms without interruption. And for a second, the sky looks like a garden someone promised a child. Blue leader, flak southeast orchard line, a Dakota pilot says. Voice level in that brave way transport pilots have. Zemke vectors a sister flight there and holds blue to the assigned box. The low war has rules you learn quickly or not at all. Never cross the silk. Never loiter over men with rifles pointed at the sky. And never, ever give artillery your second look. The Luftwaffe appears like a habit trying to break itself 2, then 4, then 8. BF-109s edging down the sunline to test the edge of the corridor. They are thin-voiced on the radio, rare and brave and late. P-51s slide from above, P-38s weave below, and the net closes without drama. Tom sees one 109 commit to a rash head-on with the Dakota nerves or despair. He can't know, and answers with a high quartering pass the Jug was made to fly. The burst is brief and ugly. The radiator folds like a shirt, and the Messerschmitt drops away, trailing a white flag of steam. Tom does not watch the end. There is a church spire to his right and a line of silk to his left, and a small, fierce world in between where his duty exists. Gliders come off tow over the DZ in disciplined herds, wings whispering, skids set for earth. One horse drags a wing in a plowed field and cartwheels into dust. Another kisses a pasture like a stone-skipped well. Out of their bellies spill men with harnesses and satchels, and eyes that look briefly skyward, as if they'd like to nod thanks. Tom nods back without knowing it, then checks the oil pressure steady. Green and cylinder head temps nudge up, settle. The R-2800 keeps its iron metronome. Rover to blue flight. This is wagon armor counterattack forming on the Deersforter Road. 3 miles north of the DZ comes a Jeep voice thin with long wire and confidence. 2 Panthers, 4 half-tracks, trucks tailing, marking friendlies with yellow smoke at the hedgerow bend. You are cleared hot east of the smoke. Blue flight copies, Zemke says. First pair, bombs. Second pair, guns and a rocket ripple. Carver, your guns. 1 pass. The column shows as soon as he understands the road, Panthers low and wicked. Half-tracks riding close. Trucks snaking. All of them moving with the arrogance men have before they learn the sky hates arrogance. The first pair's 500-pounders kick the front of the line's kneecaps. A Panther slews and climbs the ditch's edge. Men spill from trucks like beans from a split sack. Tom rides the hedgerow at treetop, nose a hand's breadth low, and lays a disciplined 3-second saw through the lead half-track's engine deck, then walks it along the road into the second truck's hood. Canvas pops. A neat square fire takes hold. Too tidy for the violence it implies. He does not look for men in it. The Jug climbs, heavy and blunt and good. His wingman's rockets ripple from a too-perfect angle, 3 smoke trails bending lazy arcs into a hedgerow, and Tom starts to say off, but the rockets arrive and turn a field's edge into flying timber, splash hedgerow, vehicles braking. The Jeep voice calls, "Give us 1 more and we'll walk the guns in." Zemke vetoes the second pass. "Negative. Blue has work east. Typhoons inbound for your hedge. Keep your heads down. Wagon." It is like that all morning. Jeeps talking in poetry. Fighters answering in verbs. A rail cut chews and spits splinters. A culvert collapses under a fuel bowser. A farmhouse that pretended to be a barn remembers it has electricity for a radio and then learns about 50 caliber. The Jug takes a scolding from small flak that sounds like hail on a tin roof. A seam opens in Tom's left wing where fabric meets hinge. The aileron hums a note he doesn't like. then shuts up when he adds a twist of trim like a friend told a joke at the wrong time and apologized. By noon, the river is no longer a line men draw on maps as if it were a commandment. Engineers are already throwing Bailey spans at approaches. The Luftwaffe has turned into single fighters making gestures. One FW-190 tries to bounce a glider strip and finds P-47s are not in the habit of letting men bounce anything without a cost. Tom drops through the German's blind corner, the sight ring a tight halo, and lets a short bite of 50 sow from fuselage side to canopy frame. The Focke-Wulf skates across a field, digs a wing, and folds. Tom climbs without ceremony, toggles the gun heat because the air is knife cold, and checks his ammo drums numbers getting small, like children counting on fingers. In the afternoon, the call every jug driver knows by smell arrives locomotive southbound, coal smoke heavy, mile east of Brunnen. Trains are arteries. Arteries feed limbs. Limbs break when the blood stops. Tom and his wingmen take the old shears approach, one from the beam, one from the bow. The first burst discipline reminds the engineer to make a bad decision. The second saw writes a bright line along the boiler seam. Steam erupts, a white volcano that turns the cab into a secret. The train shrieks itself still. Men jump. A conductor waves something white that's not a flag, just a handkerchief. And Tom looks away because looking is a kind of cruelty he can't afford. Fuel. The old stone returns to Tom's belly. He checks the needle, feels the clock, does the math that's lived behind his eyes for 18 months wind. Drag, the hunger of a radial at low altitude. Blue leader, blue 4 bingo in 4. He calls. Copy, Zemke says. Voice smaller with distance now as they angle west. Home plate is green, pancake by elements. We did the work. They climb through the thin afternoon sun, and for a heartbeat, the Rhine looks like a coin flicked on a table, bright, round sound. On final, the crosswind tugs, and Tom answers with feet and patience. The jug settles like a good horse. Wheels kiss. Tail drops. The runway hums its low victory note. After shutdown, the silence feels honest, not hostile. The crew chief in the greasy cap runs his thumbs over the wing seam like a violin maker checking a joint. She'll want new fabric before you take the low lanes again, he says, then taps the cowl twice. Engine's asking for nothing but a bath. In debrief, the map glows with grease pencil X's and circles. The intelligence officer's pencil is a tired metronome, flak sights suppressed. Armor halted. Trains interdicted. Light Luftwaffe presence. Drop zones secure. A young paratroop lieutenant with dust still in his eyebrows steps in to add a thank you. He stumbles over. He says it to the room, to the airplanes on the line, to the idea that men you cannot see will kill the thing trying to kill you. Tom looks at his hands and sees the gray outline of his gloves tattooed briefly in oil across his palms. Twilight lays blue light over dispersal. Somewhere a gramophone makes a tune fit for a clean dance floor no one in this county has seen in 5 years. Tom stands under the jug's big round face and feels the quiet press of a truth he will never say on a lecture hall stage. Sometimes wars end because bridges don't, because trucks burn on roads, because trains choke, because a river that was a wall woke up one morning and discovered it was a hallway. The laugh that once followed the Thunderbolt like a nickname has gone missing. In its place is a nod. The simple one men give a tool that has done a day's dirty work and asks only for fuel, ammo, and a cloth pulled across a cowl. Tomorrow the saw will sing east of the river. It will sing until there is no need for songs. 407, 1945. 1520 west of Magdeburg. Spring light thin as new skin on water, and the fields below a patchwork of plowed brown and first green. The jug's cockpit smells of hot oil and canvas. Dust frets in the sunlight that leaks around the canopy frame. Lieutenant Tom Carver settles at 10,000 feet with blue flight spread in a stepped 4 behind him. The R-2800's hum a patient drum under his boots. Fighter Control's voice floats up from a room you can picture now without trying map table. Coffee that forgot to taste like anything. A sergeant who doesn't blink unknowns lifting from Zerbst. Fast, likely jets. Pattern work. All elements hold altitude and cover the field on my mark. Blue flight copies, Captain Hub Zemke says, his tone the same one he uses to ask for tea. No one dives until the roll. They're faster upstairs. We take them where the earth is still a rumor. Tom feels his shoulders loosen against the harness. He has heard about jets in the way you hear about a storm in the next county Me-262s that come in like thrown knives. Do a job and leave you talking about weather. The trick, everyone repeats it like a catechism, is to catch them dirty gear down. Flaps out. The speed of their arrogance suddenly mortal. The field shows itself as a smear of concrete and grass cut into neat geometry by taxi tracks. White smoke purls from a hangar where someone has been careless with fuel or honest with sabotage. Blue flight fans to a lazy L above the pattern. Contrails thin and frayed. Tom watches the first 262 appear in the upwind. Stubby wings straight and shiny. Twin nacelles big enough to make a man think about iron and fire. For a heartbeat, the jet looks like a promise from a different century. Then it turns base. The promise becomes an airplane. Now, Zemke says no drama. Just a door opening. Tom rolls left, nose down a whisper, and lets gravity put a hand between his shoulders. The jug gathers itself and falls without hurry. The sight rings settling ahead of the jet's canopy lead the mistake, not the machine. The 262 flares with its nose a hair high, pilot thinking of grass under wheels and a rollout he'll brag about later. Tom squeezes a 2-second burst that walks the seam where canopy meets spine. Glass powders. The jet's left nacelle belches a flat, ugly, yellow flame and the airplane cants into the grass, shearing a wing with the graceless certainty of a plow meeting a buried rock. Tom is already unloading, climbing, checking 6 like a man locking the door behind him. Splash 1, his wingman says, voice thin but steady. 2 more in the downwind. The second Me-262 stays clean and fast, ignores the pattern, drags a streak across the sky that looks like a pencil line drawn by a child with too much pride. 2 Mustangs from somewhere above dive like hawks off a telephone wire and cut the line into ragged script. The jet runs on one engine until it runs on hope, and then that, too, fails. Blue flight circles high while the Luftwaffe's last brave gestures unravel in heat and arithmetic. Down in the dispersals, mechanics scatter like birds under a thrown hat. A truck catches fire and then forgets how to stop. Someone in a control shack waves a green flag because that's the thing they know how to do. Tom watches it with the detached empathy of a carpenter in a house that will not stand. He understands the love of a finished corner and the hurt of a split timber. He keeps his distance. Mercy is altitude today. Break off, Zemke orders. Rover needs the road east of Dessau cut again. Bridge approaches only. Friendlies on the span. The war refuses to be about trophies for long. Tom turns the jug toward the river and the old work roads. Rails. Culverts takes his hands like an apprentice's tool. The first pass shreds a queue of trucks hugging a willow line. The second, no. There is no second. He hears his own voice say at one pass. Clean hands. He climbs and watches artillery, called in by a man with a handset under a bridge parapet. Do the unmannered work of ending wheels. 0416, 1945. The odor roars far off like a train rolling behind a wall. Tom flies an armed recce west of Berlin that feels like walking through a house after a party broken glass. Cigarette smoke. Chairs crooked in the wrong corners. The Luftwaffe is present as rumor and courage, a 190 that pops from a cloud like a card from a sleeve, takes a shot at a Mitchell, and vanishes into weather that has already decided not to be kind to him. A 109 that rides head-on into a box of 50s and comes apart as if arithmetic had cut him in half. Tom refuses every invitation to chase. The jug is a plow horse that can sprint, not a greyhound that can plow. 04/25/1945. The Elbe, an iron line turned ribbon glints under a thin noon sun. Russian artillery thumps somewhere east like a distant heart. Tom escorts fortresses on one of the last neat missions. The hum of the R-2800 patient. The rhythm, religious boom. Saw. Climb. Only this time, there is no real fight left. Just flak that kills as if it has a schedule, and prop wash that wobbles your sight picture when you least want it to. The bombers open their bellies out of habit and duty, and because some factories are still making ghosts, on the turn home. A lone Focke-Wulf slides in too gallant, and Tom gives him a half-second that spoils the line without making a sermon of it. The German flips inverted, rights himself, runs. Tom lets him. He thinks, not for the first time, of walking into a chapel when the service is over and hearing someone still say amen. 5/1, 1945. The rumor arrives on the ops table like a newspaper left on a bench, Hitler dead. No one cheers. Men lift their eyes and lower them. The weather is poor, the sorties are short. Tom flies a bridge denial and spends 20 minutes watching for trucks that have learned to sleep in daylight. He lands in rain that smells like iron and damp wool. The ground chief in the greasy cap counts the new flak kisses with his thumbs and says, "Not for the first time. She does finished." Lieutenant. 05/08, 1945. 10:07, somewhere between the Thames and a field that has learned every sound men can make. A controller's voice breaks on the net. "Cease operations. Repeat. Cease operations. All combat sorties canceled. Ground all aircraft except weather and courier. Effective immediately. Message authentication follows." The words pile up. No one speaks. Then they do. All at once. In laughter that sounds like coughing and coughing that sounds like tears. Tom is already in the pattern from a weather recce that turned into a quiet circle above a country that suddenly looks less like a map problem and more like a place people live. He calls the field with a voice that feels too big for his mouth. Blue 4. Landing. The jug settles on mains with a gentleness he didn't know she had. As if the airplane has wanted to be a tractor all along, and now is allowed to say it in public. He taxis to the hard stand where he has always stopped, and where a ladder has always clanked, and where hands have always reached up to take his weight. The R-2800 coughs, sighs, and spins down. Prop blades blur to steel, then to wood, then to stopped. The silence is full of birds he had forgotten were this loud. Ground crews climb on cowlings as if the airplane were a porch. Someone produces a bottle and refuses to name its contents. The chaplain walks by with his cap off, not because of God, but because of habit and gratitude. Debrief is a room with maps that already look old. The intelligence officer sets his pencil down and does not pick it up. An adjutant posts a typed sheet with names that will not fly again for reasons other than death. Transfers, points, orders. A boy with 2 large boots asks if he can see the jug's guns, now that they've stopped being hungry. And Tom laughs because it is a child's kind of phrase and because it is exactly right. He steps back into the sun that's trying to be warm. The jug stands with its big round face turned toward nobody in particular. Gun ports, soot-ringed. Invasion stripes faded to chalk. New canvas drying tight over a repaired aileron seam. He puts his palm flat on the cowl and feels heat seep into skin. The echo of work done. He thinks of 10/14/1943 and a sky that was a Sawblade over Schweinfurt. Of 03/06 1944 when Berlin stopped being a word and started being a place. Of hedgerows and barns and roads and bridges, and a river that was supposed to be a wall. Of New Year's morning when jets tried to make speed a kind of courage and found out courage lives lower, in pattern turns and men who dive only when they mean it. Behind him, someone starts a gramophone, and a tune from before the war comes thin across the grass. He doesn't cry, he doesn't salute. He stands a long minute and breathes the smell of hot oil and cut clover and damp canvas. And he understands the joke the Germans told about the flying bathtub was a good joke until it met a certain kind of day. 850s had turned the sky into work other men no longer wanted to do. The laugh ended. The work did not. Until now. He lifts his hand from the cowl. The print he leaves in dust looks like a small country on a map. his country for a little while. He wipes it away with his sleeve because workmen clean their tools at the end of the day.